Welcome to Breaking Down the Buzz, the podcast where we explore the thrilling world of tech industry leaders. From AI to the latest trends, we cut through the noise and decode the tech buzz and share our collected insights and insider knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the debut episode of Breaking Down the Buzz, the podcast where we unravel the intriguing stories behind the movers and the shakers of the tech industry. I'm your host, Rahana Mead, and today we have a very special guest who's not only a powerhouse in the world of technology, but also a dear friend of mine. About 10 years ago, when Synergy Technical was a fledgling consulting firm, I had the privilege of crossing paths with our guest today. Little did I know, we were about to embark on a series of unforgettable adventures, both in and out of the office. She's the Chief Information Officer of Kinsale Insurance, a tech-savvy Wonder Woman, and someone I've shared more firsts with than I can count. From burning the midnight oil during a legendary work all-nighter to taking the plunge in the not-so-inviting waters of the Hudson River, and yes, even earning the honorary title of last-place finishers in a road race together, we've seen it all. But today, we're not here to just reminisce about our shared misadventures. We're here to tap into the wealth and knowledge of experience our guest brings to the table as she shares her wisdom on both the ever-evolving world of technology, as well as how to recruit and retain top tech talent. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, get ready to laugh and learn as we dive headfirst into the buzzing world of tech with our first guest on Breaking Down the Buzz, the fabulous Ms. Diane Schnupp. Diane, thanks for joining me. I'm so excited that you could be our first guest on the Buzz. You've been, it's going to sound odd, but you've been a lot of firsts in my for a long time.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So I want to keep this pretty conversational. That'll be easy with us because we're old friends and we might possibly forget that recording is even happening, which
it could
be interesting. So I have a few questions to ask you. We certainly can go off topic for sure. But first thing is, you've been in technology leadership roles for a long time, and I don't know that I ever got your backstory on how you got into technology or how you landed in this world. So can you give me that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I was like a math science nerd growing up all during school. And my dad worked with a lot of engineers. My dad's an accountant, but he worked with a bunch of engineers. And so he always, like my whole life and my brother's whole life, was like, you're going to be an engineer. And so we were like, oh, all right, I guess we're going to be an engineer. So we went to Virginia Tech. We both majored in engineering. Mine is in electrical. His is in mechanical. And I don't think this is true. I think this is me exaggerating, but I remember feeling like if I was going to school and I wasn't going to study engineering, my dad wasn't going to pay for me to go to college.
I love that.
I, at one point, floated the idea of being an English major, and I thought my dad was going to just, his head was going to explode. So it's just really that like math science aptitude in school and growing up and all along. Like my favorite class I think I took in high school was physics, which is weird, right? But I loved it. And actually, one of my favorite classes I took at Virginia Tech was physics for electrical engineers.
Wow.
Weird, right? And I that one, like I put off because I was scared of it, and then ended up loving it. So really, I think it's that influence of my dad, like influence of math and science teachers that I had in school that really propelled me into like that engineering career. And then my first job out of college was a little bit more traditional engineering, and I got interested in telecommunications. And then from telecommunications went into, got more involved in IT. So sort of a little bit of a kind of an indirect path, I guess. But
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because women of our generation weren't necessarily encouraged to be engineers.
I was one of two women in electrical engineering when I was at Virginia Tech.
Wow.
I had you'll enjoy that. I had a professor at my freshman, like very first class, like fundamentals of engineering. I was the only girl in the class, and my professor was really, really old and kept like making these like snotty comments about how, girls don't belong in engineering and all that kind of thing. And what was funny about it is it backfired on him, I think, because all the guys in the class sort of defended me and became like my brothers, and we're just like, this is ridiculous kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was crazy. I was definitely like that back then.
Yeah. Times have definitely changed. So around that, you and I have both been tech leaders in Richmond, Virginia for a long time now. It's like forever. And Richmond, Virginia has not historically been known for maybe embracing diversity and more progressive ideas. Can you tell me a little bit about what it was like being, an early tech woman in Richmond? I have my thoughts on it. So
I'm sure. Well, I mean, you're from California. I'm from Richmond, so I kind of didn't know any better.
Yeah.
No, a little different, but I would say early days, that whole like theme of, college being, the only one or one of few, was very common, and same thing in my early career. So I had my first job. I was getting married, and all these, older guys that worked for the company were telling me that, I was too young to get married. I was too young to get married. I was too young to get married. And I went, got married, came back, and literally my first day back in the office after my honeymoon, they were like, "When are you gonna have a kid? Did you not get any younger?" Like, why do you think this is any of your business? So it just was, it was different, and that was a small office of a larger company, but it was definitely different. Now I would say, I should know the statistics of this. Some, reasonably large portion of my team is women, and women that are developers or managers, and data people, and all of those kinds of skills. And it's not even something like I feel like I do think about it from the perspective of I want to support and encourage women in technology, but it's much more prevalent now that you have really qualified female candidates.
Yeah, it's not as noticeable anymore. It used to be that when you went to a tech conference, well, really anywhere, not just Richmond, but anywhere, the great thing about being a woman in tech was that there was no line for the bathroom ever. The men would be queued up forever, and there were no lines for the bathroom. And it's interesting because when we were at the RVA Tech Gala, even just last week, it was amazing to see all the women that are in tech roles now that just wasn't the case 25 years ago at all.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting. And what I would say is that Richmond in general has really become a really great tech town. And I don't think that people necessarily would have predicted that. But, living and working here, it's a great tech town, and it's a very diverse tech town, which is.
I agree. What's interesting about that is we have a pretty robust intern program. Mm-hmm. And a couple years ago, we were just starting it. It's three years ago. We were just starting the intern program here, and so I was more involved in it then, and so I was interviewing the intern candidates, and like every female candidate that I interviewed asked me some form of the question of what kind of bias had I experienced in my career, and I was really surprised by that, because I guess I had hoped that wouldn't even be on their radar by now.
Right.
And it made me sad that they're obviously asking for a reason, and it's probably because they've experienced something. So I hope we're further along than that.
Yeah.
And I want to be at a point, soon, hopefully, where nobody even thinks to ask that question.
Right. Yeah, I think we're further along. We're probably just not there yet. Sadly, because every once in a while something will happen, and you'll be like, "Really? What?
Right.
What's happened?"
Yeah. Right.
So I've known you working across several organizations, both large and small, very small to very large. What, from an IT perspective, can you kind of talk about what the differences are being an IT professional in a really large organization as opposed to maybe a smaller, mid-sized organization?
Yes, definitely. So I personally prefer a smaller, mid-sized organization. I feel like you have the opportunity to make more of a difference every day and really see the impact of your work. I mentioned our intern program. One of the things that I think that's cool about our intern program is that as a summer intern with us, like one of our goals is that you get your code in production. So that whole release process and you see your code go into production.
That's cool.
I think that's pretty unusual. If you were at a much larger organization, you probably wouldn't really have that opportunity to do something that was meaningful like that. And I feel like that's true broadly within the organization. Large companies, I feel like this was not a company I was at, but a company I interviewed with one time. And the role that I was interviewing for was so narrow compared to the role that I had been doing previously. And I think that's probably more typical. There's so much more to do within a narrow space, so that the roles get more well-defined and tighter, whereas small companies, especially startups, you just need to do everything. Whatever needs to be done, you need to jump in and you need to get it done and and make it happen. And that gives you a lot of breadth of experience and opportunities to do new and different things. So I like that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, I've worked for really large companies and really small companies and everything in between. And it my first passion, as you know, has always been consulting. And when you work for a smaller company, you're functioning more as a consultant to the business than if you're in a large company where you've just got this single defined role. In a small company, you get, and even a mid-size, you get to touch a lot more and influence a lot more. So I'm in exactly the same place. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So from a technology standpoint, again, you've been in technology for a while now. What do you think is, I swear I'm not calling you old. I've been in technology for just as long. So I get it. But what do you think the most transformative technology is that you've seen in your career? Like, what changed everything?
Oh my gosh. In my career, I am a little bit older than you. And think about when I first started, like my first job was a mainframe computer. My first computer that I had in college the screen was literally like this big because it was a portable. It was like this massive heavy suitcase thing with this tiny little, gold screen kind of thing. My first job was mainframe computer. We had email, but it was pretty rudimentary. And there was your network bandwidth was tiny. Right. You didn't have the access that you do today. So I remember interviewing for a job in 1999, and the company being like, they weren't like, well, what do you think about this internet thing? But they were like, is e-commerce a thing we need to be aware of? Like the whole, whole internet. Like we didn't have that in college. I didn't have that in college. You might have had that. Like I didn't have the internet in college. It was there wasn't the information at your fingertips. Nobody had a phone. I think I had my first BlackBerry in like the early 2000s, and that's when. And you were cool if you had a BlackBerry. So cool. Yes. I remember before that having a bag phone when I was on call, So the BlackBerry was awesome. And that's kind of what made like the senior executives in the company I was with that's when they kind of started caring about email. Like, before that, if the email server went down, they could have cared less, but all of a sudden they had their BlackBerry and it was, fun. It was at their fingertips. So all the innovation in that space that you just can't even imagine today living without or doing your job without, like didn't exist. Right. It was really new. So I think we've seen a pretty dramatic change even since 2000 to today. Yeah, kids' lifetimes. It's funny. It's funny because I read something a while ago that if
people leave their house without their phone, they are like 99% likely to go back. But if you forget your wallet, you'll just keep right on rolling. And
I can see that.
yeah, and to your point, I mean, you think about, I can remember the first time as a CIO that, we had BlackBerries also, because BlackBerries, you could control the security on them. And from an IT perspective, it was a secure device that you could manage. And I can remember the first time my boss, the CEO, came in and handed me his iPhone, which, was probably a different size, and said, make this work with our stuff. And, as an IT professional, I was like, no, no, I don't want to do that, because we couldn't manage them. But you think about now, all the things, just the consumer device moving into the IT world, how that's transformed business. I can run my whole business from this thing,
yes.
Which is incredible. I mean, it's absolutely incredible. And I think that youngsters coming out of school now just have no concept that, we like printed things.
Right.
I mean, it's so different.
Paper you used to have, and the
green bar. You remember the green bar and the dot matrix printers?
Oh gosh. Yes. Yeah. At least we didn't do the key card things, whatever that was.
Yes. Yeah. My grandfather had
that long ago.
Yeah, my grandfather had those, and he kept everything, and he almost could have been on hoarders. Let's put it that way. And he had these giant stacks of those punch cards in his office, and he would use them to write notes on. So everything you ever got from my grandfather was written on a punch card.
Oh, that's great.
Hilarious. It was absolutely hilarious. So around that, in today's world, what technology is the most interesting and exciting for you now?
I am fully on the generative AI bandwagon. Like, I'm just fascinated by it. And, of course, we talk about the benefits and the risks of course. But I just think about, like, 5 years from now, we're going to look back and it's going to be so different than what things are today. Yeah. I'm really excited about the potential for that and how we can introduce it and how we can introduce it safely and, all of that kind of thing. So,
yeah, I think generative AI will be like the internet was for us, where you just will never have a day that you don't use it. I mean, I can tell you that I use ChatGPT almost every day, if not every day, for real.
Yes.
And am super looking forward to Microsoft Copilot. But for now, I'm living in ChatGPT. It, to me, is I heard someone say that you need to think of it like a really good intern. And that's a really
great way to think about it.
Yeah, because, it does really good research and it spits out really good output, but you got to fact check it and you got to rework it a little bit. But it's like my own personal really good intern. And that's the way it.
I think that's a great way to describe it. And that's kind of how we're using it organizationally. We use it for, research. We do use a little bit of the code generation bit, which I think has a ton of potential. But, if we're looking at launching a new product or want to research something, our underwriters are using ChatGPT to go out and, pull lots of information and data and research and then fact checking it and making it their own. And it's so much easier to edit something than it is to create something from scratch.
Yeah, that was the other quote that I saw recently was, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was a Wharton professor said, no one's ever going to start from a blank page again. Like, that's such a game changer. I mean,
it really is. Yeah, because you just think about how much time it takes to like wrap your head around getting started, and you kind of make yourself get started, and then you have to go back and edit it. So you sort of skip all of that. And it just our whole business has been founded around a technology strategy of automation and efficiency, and I just see generative AI accelerating that opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think definitely. What technology or tools are unique to the insurance industry? So you're in sort of a unique industry. Are there technologies that you use that are unique?
I don't know that there are technologies and tools that are unique to the industry. I think one thing that's unique to Kinsale is the way that we leverage technology that's different than a lot of our competitors or peers in the market. So Kinsale is almost 15-year-old company, 14-year-old company, and we have always had a strategy of leveraging technology for kind of really maximum benefit for the efficiency and automation that I mentioned earlier. And so we started out with the concept of building our own. So there were some early, purchases of systems and solutions, but very quickly the goal was to build our own so that we could really have bespoke processes and build according to the way that we do business. And it's been a huge efficiency play for us. Like our expense ratios are really exceptional compared to our competition. And a lot of that is through technology. And we really look at where does it make sense to build and where does it make sense to buy? What's a competitive advantage and what isn't? Because if you spend a bunch of time building something that isn't a competitive advantage, it's opportunity cost. So let's do that. So our underwriting systems, our claims platforms are all things that we've built, and we're now in the process really of rebuilding them, leveraging cloud technologies and newer solutions, and trying to combine them in more innovative ways that have probably been successful in other industries, but are things that aren't typical for our industry. So it's been a real differentiator for us.
I would think you're dealing with just a ton of data. Yeah. Do you have data scientists on your staff? Or you?
We have them within our company. So our actuarial team is tiny but mighty, and we are very much like an analytics and always have been an analytics-driven company. So they are really able to get in and find data and pull data sets and run all kinds of cool analytics about the profitability of a particular product or the some future looking projections, like all kinds of things that they're able to do with the data that we collect. Part of our work we're doing now around moving towards a what I call our target state is designed to make that access to data easier for the actuary. So I tell our chief actuary that they do a lot through heroics, and I want to just be able to serve that up to them so that they can spend their time doing the things their very big brains are really good at.
Yeah, I would think that that's a team of folks that would really benefit from innovations in AI, just to be able to do predictive analytics and things like that. I would think that they would be super excited about that. I don't even understand what they do. They're people that are much, much smarter than me. So
well, you're one of the smartest people I know. So I don't know about that, but they definitely are very, very smart, and they are excited about the technology. There's some of the people that are playing with ChatGPT and doing some testing. We're very interested in the ability to put our data into a private space so that we can do more with Gen AI and pull some insights from it.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah. So changing gears entirely, you're involved with several nonprofits, and I love that about you. Our shared passions.
Absolutely.
Are there any instances where having a tech background really has helped you guide nonprofits, like as a board member or anything like that?
So you also are very active in this space, I know. So I think it's interesting to me how I think a technology or a math or a science kind of person, I think our brains just work differently.
Yes, I agree.
Maybe someone who's more creative and artistic. And I love that dynamic of both. And so it's really interesting to be in a conversation in a board meeting or whatever, and just hear someone express a point of view that is something I never considered and is really, makes a ton of sense, is really interesting. And then, we maybe look at things completely differently, so that bringing different lenses to bear and look at different perspectives on a problem than maybe you would consider otherwise. I always think that leads to a better solution. So I think just generally that's the case. I'm involved with Virginia Family Lifeline, and early in my involvement with them, they were looking at doing, a risk assessment and what's the impact of HIPAA and, those types of things, where having a technology background and some background in information security was really helpful. So I think it's good to bring those different viewpoints into the mix.
Yeah, it's funny because I will sit in board meetings with nonprofits, and I'm very much wired to look at business process automation. So I'll see things happening, and in my brain I'm architecting solutions, because I'm like, why are we doing this way? Why are all our board books on paper and distributing them? Let's build a board portal, and stuff like that I think that just is so innately wired in what we do for a living. And I think it brings definitely a different perspective.
Yes. You'll maybe laugh at that. I was in line with two other IT people at a winery one weekend over the summer. And we were just looking at the inefficiencies of the process. And we were like, okay, we just need to take a deep breath here. But we totally wanted to reprocess, re-engineer the whole entire process and be like, you just need to do it this way. And I think that is like an
yes, exactly. So we both have daughters that graduated recently from Virginia Tech.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So I can't give advice to my daughter, and you probably can't give advice to your daughter. But if you were giving advice to my daughter as an early career professional, what kind of advice would you give kids coming out of school today?
I'm all about attitude and aptitude, and I think it's going with a good attitude. Be willing to do whatever it takes. Learn lots. Put yourself in a position to be exposed to a lot of different things. Volunteer for things. Ask questions. I think early in my career, I was much shyer and more quiet. And I didn't want to, probably didn't want to look stupid. So I didn't want to ask questions. So I just kind of try to figure things out. And I probably made it harder on myself. So, ask a ton of questions and, take every opportunity that's given to you to do something new and different and or learn more about whatever it is that you're doing. I think if you have that great attitude and you show you have an aptitude to learn, you can do anything, and you'll get lots of opportunities as a result of that.
Yeah, I would agree. It's don't be scared if somebody asks you to do something you've never done before, because you can figure it out.
Exactly.
You absolutely can figure it out. And I think your piece of advice I would give is, and someone said this to me once, your job as an employee is to make your boss look good. That is your job. And so always be asking for, what can I do to help you? What can I do to make your job easier and to make you shine? And a good boss will give credit back that,
absolutely,
that they have done this. But I think that if kids go into it with that's not on my job description. That's not, I don't want to do that. But how can I help you? I know, I know you need help with these three things. How can I help you? I think it makes a huge difference. And those are the kids that are going to end up in leadership positions.
Absolutely. There's a developer on my team. He's been here for a couple years now. And when he first started, he would be the one person who was still here when I was leaving at the end of the day, kind of think, because you know how it is. Like, you want him to actually have some time at your desk and do some work. And he would be here, and I would stop and, chat with him and just say, hey, what are you working on later or whatever? And he was just like, well, I'm learning. And so I feel like I'm not as fast as I'd like to be. And so I just want to put in the extra time and get more done. Like, I'll never forget that about him. I was so impressed by that. So I think putting in that extra effort, putting in that extra time is so meaningful.
Yeah, I agree. So last question, what do you like to do in your spare time?
I like to hang out with my female technology leader friends.
We do have quite the pack, don't we?
Right? Yeah, it's a great group. We spend a lot of time in the mountains, so I like to do a lot of hiking. I like to ride my Peloton. I'm obsessed with that. I'm definitely not one of those IT people that like goes home and starts coding anymore.
Right.
But like to read, like to keep current on things, like to cook, eat. So kind of I guess boring kind of stuff, but just fun. We do and really enjoy our time in the mountains, so that's a favorite thing.
Yeah, good for you. Well, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. This was super fun.
Thank you. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you and spend time with you. So thank you.